Welcome, everyone, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN, powered by the Midwest Coalition of Labor. I'm Ken Edwards with the Midwest Coalition of Labor. Sitting to my left is Ed Maher with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150.
Morning.
Good morning. And sitting to his left is our now full-time, what do you call yourself?
Host,
yeah.
Hostess with the mostest.
No longer an apprentice.
You have passed your apprentice program.
I did, thank you.
Phil Davidson with the Mid-America Carpenters Regional Council.
Good morning.
Good morning, guys. Quick, before we start, Ed, what are you going to be for Halloween?
Man, I wish I had thought about that. I don't have a good answer.
Phil?
I don't have a funny answer for that one.
Construction worker.
Construction, that's a decent one. I'm actually going to be Ed.
Are
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, scary.
It's not easy to do.
You're going to go travel to Europe for 3 months a year? Or is that, how do you be Ed?
That's a good one.
Well, I guess if you have to have a reputation, that's not a terrible
It's a good one to
have.
have. It's a
Jet
good one
setter
to have.
Ed.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to be. So, anyway, Halloween's coming up. That's one of my favorite holidays, by the way. It's
Halloween.
just, oh my God, it's a blast.
Are you dressing up for Halloween? Other than, you're not actually going to be me.
No, but what I actually do is on our block, we have a little mini, block party type thing, if you will. And I bring out a guitar and an amp and a bunch of candy and maybe some adult beverages. And any kid that walks up, I'm like, hey, pick a song, any song, and I'll play it on the guitar right now. And they're like, oh, Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm like, you got it. And I just rip off some crappy heavy metal riff. I'm like, Bohemian Rhapsody, everybody.
There you go.
I do it for hours.
How many Freebird requests do you get?
It's a younger, more millennial crowd, right?
Yeah.
So I'm getting like, hey, can you Taylor Swift? And
Yeah.
Right?
Sure can.
Taylor Swift, everyone.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I think
thank
that's
you.
great. That's the kind of thing that brings neighborhoods together.
Yeah.
It's called trick and
Yeah.
trick or treat,
It's
right?
a great unifier. You always
Yeah,
have been.
we need to have some tricks. So anyway, with some tricks up their sleeves, the UAW just pulled off a massive, massive win, right? Yay.
Clapping in the studio for that.
Got a tentative agreement with Ford. I believe that the details will be coming out this evening, if I'm not mistaken. I think Sean Fain is going to have a live Facebook stream or something like that. But the Detroit Free Press, I don't know if they want to call it leaked it, but it's in an article. They talked about some of the terms of the deal. And it was like a 33% pay increase over 3 years. Getting rid of the two-tiered system. Let's
That's
see what
a big
else.
deal,
Oh
yeah.
my God, that's a huge, huge deal. Let's see. Raising the top wage by more than 30% to $40 an hour. Raising the starting wage by 68%.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you can reach top level after 3 years as opposed to 8 under the previous contract.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Providing a raise of more than 150% to the lowest paid workers at Ford over the life of the agreement, with some workers receiving an immediate 85% increase upon ratification, reinstating some of the benefits lost during the recession.
That's a huge deal.
Oh, my gosh. Cost of living adjustments, 3-year wage agreements, killing the tiers, improving benefits for current retirees, workers with pensions, and those who have 401ks, including the right to strike over plant closures.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's a big deal,
Yeah.
right?
It's
You want to
something
close a
slow
plant
down
like Belvedere,
outsourcing.
and yeah, that's exactly right. And I think, hopefully this thing goes, and then everybody else takes the same deal. And then UAW has said, we're going to take this to the South.
Right.
Right, we're going to start organizing, these non-union plants, and we're
Go
also,
get 'em.
by the way, have guarantees now that electric vehicles will be under the
Go
master
get
agreement.
Tesla too while you're at it.
Go get Teslas,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
Mr. Spaceman.
Right.
So I mean that's a pretty big deal, right?
For sure. I mean,
And-
strikes work.
Yeah, I mean,
International news. Yeah. this is
especially
big.
lately, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm pretty stoked to hear that. I hope it goes well. I don't profess to know all the ins and outs, but we'll see. I guess we'll be reporting on the terms of that and whether it went next week. In local news, Phil.
Yeah, more good news to share. The Carpenters Union recently announced that we had an extension on our contract for another 5 years with MARBA, which is the bargaining association that represents the commercial contractors throughout an 8-county region in Chicagoland. And over the course of the 5-year extension, it's going to be 20% increase
Wow.
in compensation for our members. And This current contract wasn't supposed to expire until June of next year, and this was done and ratified 6 months ahead of schedule.
Why'd they do it early? How'd that happen?
Because it was we've been working well. It's been a strong partnership, and our union, led by our EST Gary Perinar, sat down with the lead negotiator from Arbor and said, "Let's get this done." And everyone was on board, and yeah, it's fantastic when you see so many unions, going out on strike, having these antagonistic relationships with their employers, their contractors, and for us to get that done and provide huge raises and increases for our members is something we're pretty proud of. So
did you guys already ratify it?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so how many people does it cover?
About 30,000
Wow.
In that region.
And that's 4 years.
5 years.
5 years.
5-year deal.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
I mean,
5-year
that's
extension.
nice to have that stability, right?
For sure.
Absolutely.
So then, like year one, it's like, hey, I can buy a house and I know I'm going to be making in 5 years, right? And assuming that work continues to be good, which is through the roof right now.
That's right.
I don't think the contractors would agree to it if the work was bad,
I think that's right.
right?
Yep.
So
And so what was it, 20% you said?
it's 4% a year over 5 years.
And it's interesting. So people will say like, oh, 4%, I can get 5% of the bank or whatever. It's 4% of what? $50 an hour?
Yeah.
So it's
4%.
4%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
okay. It's 4% of a very large
Right.
number.
And then that 4% compounds every year, so it's technically more.
Of course.
Right. So.
And then pension and health insurance and annuities and all the bells and whistles, right?
Yeah.
We just opened up under the Midwest Coalition of Labor with the operators and the carpenters our first health center,
Yeah.
right? And it's really, really cool. And more to come, right? And we'll be talking about that soon. But I mean, these are the type of things that unions are doing right now.
Good pay, good
And-
benefits, more opportunities to see a dedicated health professional. You don't have to wait in long lines to see your doctor.
Yeah.
I mean, life is good over here.
Yeah, knock on wood. And I'll tell you, we're going to now hear, unfortunately, I think the antithesis of what we're talking about, what we're used to in the building trades with the guests that we have coming on today, which are two Walgreens pharmacists that are in a Walgreens union.
Yeah.
And who knew that it even existed? Well, it turns out they just merged with the laborers right here in Chicago laborers, and so they're going to talk about what it's like to be a pharmacist right now. And if you've been reading
tough.
the
It's a tough
papers,
gig.
yeah, oh my gosh, if you're reading the papers, it's like pharmacist walkouts, and burnout, and all this type of things. So that's going to be really interesting. We got to take a quick break here, and then we'll be right back with the National Pharmacists Association and two of their members right here on 720 WGN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. I'm Ken. This is Ed. Here's Phil. And as we said at the top of the hour, we are really, really excited to have two pharmacists. Now, you would never think we'd be talking to pharmacists and unions, but we are.
Right.
And these guys are, you guys are, president and vice president?
President
And secretary, actually.
Okay, president and secretary of the National Pharmacists Association. So we have Joe Pignataro with us and Rob Koblesky. Did I say that right?
You did.
Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
Appreciate
coming on. Yeah, absolutely.
Be here.
You guys have a unique situation going on.
We do.
So let's just start some quick background. You both work for Walgreens.
Correct.
Okay. And here in Chicagoland.
Right.
Yes.
Joe, how long you been working there?
End of this year will be 34 years.
Wow. And Rob?
About 23 years.
Okay. And I had another question. Do you need to go to become a pharmacist? You don't just walk in and go, hey, I want to be a pharmacist. You need to go to school for that, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
And you need to be licensed?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Okay.
A lot
For a
of
good
school.
reason.
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah. I mean, post grad school as well, right? The residencies, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of changed over the years.
Yeah.
With additional with residency, but it's minimum 6 years
Of what?
of pharmacy program. I mean, there's 2 years undergrad, 4 years in a professional program at a minimum.
Yeah.
And then, and so when you say at a minimum, can you go further, like higher?
Yeah, well, there's the residencies then you can do after your pharmacy school. Usually those take you out of the retail setting more towards, clinical
Got it.
settings and whatnot.
Got it.
so-
Okay. But you need at least 6 years worth of schooling to become a pharmacist,
Right.
Correct.
right? And then when you start, let's say 34 years ago you started at Walgreens, are you like an apprentice? How does that work?
Well, it depends. I mean, a number of pharmacists for the company generally are technicians.
Okay.
And then, I mean, that's how I started.
Yep.
And from that point, once I graduated, I just moved into the pharmacist role.
Okay.
So when you go pick up a prescription, somebody gets the prescription from the back and then goes to talk to the pharmacist, has him take a look at it, and then gives you the stuff. So that'd be like a technician, then talking to the pharmacy. There's different levels behind the counter.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, we're the overseers of everything. So a lot of times you may deal with us at the out window or whatnot, and, definitely for consultations and things like that. But you're dealing with a technician first, and we're kind of behind the scenes making sure everything's correct every step of the way.
So let's talk then briefly about, just a quick overview, because I remember growing up, and I said this before we started, my first job was at a pharmacy, and I was the delivery boy. I delivered meds to my neighborhood in Queens. Most of them made it to the homes. Hey-oh, that's a joke.
3 out of 5 ain't bad.
Right. Gotta play the percentage.
I make a joke. Back then, there was, tons of mom and pop shops, right? And it seemed to be like you knew your pharmacist's name. They knew your name. They knew your kids' names. It seemed to be a lot more personal. And then as, I sort of got older, and there seemed to be consolidation, and then no more mom and pop shops, and now it's Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, whatever it is. What do you think? Like, how's the progression been for you guys? You guys have both been at Walgreens for quite some time.
Well,
it's definitely like I had mentioned before. I'm doing the overnight pharmacy right now, and I've been able to maintain a little bit more of that personal relationship. To me, it's not so much a customer or a transaction; it's a patient,
Right.
more so, and that's really kind of the direction they're trying to move pharmacy. We're becoming more almost like providers essentially, but it's definitely become more challenging with the consolidation of the stores. There used to be a lot of overnight pharmacists. A lot of Walgreens used to tout how many locations they had that were 24 hours.
Right.
Now I come across a lot of people who don't even know we exist as a 24-hour store because they completely shut down that
Sure.
those commercials and whatnot. So the 24-hour stores that are still available are getting busier and busier and busier. But I kind of
Are they adding the staff?
no.
Okay. And I think that's my ultimate question, right?
Yeah.
Are they more work, less or equal pay and less staff?
Right.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. And Joe, you feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, it's gone from having 2 pharmacists with plenty of overlap throughout the day, multiple technicians, to 1 pharmacist a shift with sometimes 2 techs, sometimes up to 4, depending on the day. But I mean, very minimal, no overlap, and just more and more just dumped on us day in and day out.
Yeah,
There's
you see
been-
that as the customer. I've waited
Yeah.
in the drive-through at
Yep,
a
for sure.
Walgreens for a half hour.
That's what
to
Ed
get
said.
a
Yep.
prescription filled.
Yeah,
It's-
and it's something I've definitely noticed. I think everybody probably has noticed over the last couple of years. It just seems busier when you go to the pharmacy, but
Yeah.
you don't want them to hurry. It's not a job where you want them to be rushing along because they have to take proper care of this.
Sure.
And I had a question. I mean, being in this industry for, almost 30 years and over 30 years, are people on more medication today than they were 20 years ago? Because it certainly seems like people are on a lot of medication these days. And there's probably just, it's more medication for more conditions available now, but there's got to be more to do than there was, 15, 20 years ago. More patients with more prescriptions.
Yes, I mean, definitely the volume in most stores continues to increase.
Yeah.
And it's just it's the workload that's just changed, the dynamics of it. The number of vaccines. I mean, COVID, if anything, I can tell you this much: it showed just how strong of a backbone the pharmacy departments for Walgreens that they are. I mean, the pharmacists that are there, the devotion that they gave to everybody over that period was
I mean, that must have been an absolute nightmare for you guys. I guess that's a really good point that I didn't think about. Like during COVID, you've had people coming in and, getting shots, and you guys are exposing yourself to people that probably had COVID, right? And, mask wearers, non-mask wearers, anti-vaxxers, some vaxxers. I mean, it must have been an absolute train wreck.
Yes.
All the above. Yes.
Well, that was when the guidelines started to really go off the rails. Where it's like, if you've been exposed, take 5 days off work unless you work in healthcare, and then just get back to work now.
Right, yeah.
That was when everybody's like, wait a second.
Right. Plenty of times, like, well, do you really have a fever? Are you sure? Is that? I think you're okay. You can come in. It's okay. Don't worry.
Can
about
you
it.
stand?
Yeah. Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, it really was the Wild West, right?
Yeah.
At the beginning of COVID. So kudos to you guys for standing up and taking care of, the populace, basically, right?
Yeah.
So you've been forced to do more with less, and so I'm sure that Walgreens has gone out of their way to really just reward you for that, right? I mean, it only makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, what they say versus what they actually do are completely different.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're here. Yeah.
That's absolutely why we're here. There was and we're going to take a quick break in a second, but and then we're going to really delve into the union piece of this, right? But there was a great article written in USA Today. It came out on the 26th, I believe, somewhere in that ballpark. Let me just see here. Yep, October 26th. And it's entitled Prescription for Disaster, America's Broken Pharmacy System in Revolt Over Burnout and Errors. Mm-hmm. If you get a chance, listeners, read that article. It is really, really well done. And it talks about, corporations pushing you guys, meaning the pharmacists, to push drugs, vaccinations, hurry up, right? Get these stuff out the door. Yep. It has become like a mill, if you will, and you heard about obviously all the opioid crisis, the pill mills and things like that. I mean, that's not you, but it really delves into short staff and exactly what you guys were just describing, being, hey, hurry up and get this stuff out. And, that's got to be a recipe for disaster.
It's bad for everyone.
Right?
Oh, definitely.
It is. It is a recipe. And I guess the other thing I want to point out is with that. So you asked before about the, what's changed. When I graduated, we were the -- 1 trusted profession in America.
Pharmacists.
Okay? Pharmacists. We were.
Over lawyers?
Over congressmen?
What the
Lawyers
heck?
number 2.
At this point, companies like Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, they have created us to fall. I think we're in the top 20 right now.
Huh.
I think we're going to be outside of the 20. And it's just the continual chipping away at our profession of just belittling it. I don't put toilet paper out on the shelf.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah. Right.
I don't.
And there's nothing wrong with the guy that puts toilet
There
paper
isn't.
on the shelf.
Right. But there's a different level of
You have a
work.
job to do that requires your focus,
Right.
your constant attention.
Have you or any of your colleagues experienced any of the thefts or any of the physical violence and intimidation happening? Walgreens is certainly has a name for that right now with shutting down stores with all the retail theft, but it's prevalent.
Not so much in the pharmacy. Well, actually, I have been held up back in the day. But that was actually long before all this occurred.
Yeah.
But currently, I can tell you, the front end of our store is constant theft.
Yeah.
All night long, you hear them calling, for, people just walking out the door. They come in. Sometimes they'll bring in a garbage bag and they'll throw stuff in and walk straight out the door. And it's
a shame.
That's a tough work environment. Yeah.
And it's also a shame when you have to lock up baby formula.
Yeah.
Right. I've heard that's the most stolen item in pharmacists, and that's a shame. I mean, it's, as a society. We're gonna take a quick break here. If you get a chance, definitely read that article. We're talking to Joe Pignataro, Rob Koblesky, both from the National Pharmacists Association, which has just joined the laborers. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. You guys will stick around for the next segment?
Sure.
Yep, definitely.
You sure?
I was hoping they'd say yes.
We'd be screwed if not.
You kind of made it so they have to, Ken.
They lock the doors.
Now you
There's a big
can't
lock
leave.
on that door,
Yes,
so
can't
I'm not
leave.
sure about that. But
Yeah.
All right, listen, we will be right back with more of the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Workers' Mic here on WGN. I'm Ed Maher. I'm with Ken Edwards and Phil Davidson. And if you were listening on the previous segment, you heard Joe Pignataro and Rob Koblesky from the National Pharmacists Association. So welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, Rob and Joe.
Thanks for sticking around.
No problem.
So we're going to pivot now, and we're going to talk about the union. All right?
Okay.
You guys have what I believe is, I've never heard of a pharmacist union. They're not prevalent, are they?
Not really, no. I mean, there's far and few between.
Okay.
We represent the Walgreens pharmacists, staff pharmacists, and what we call market or floaters for the Chicagoland area.
Okay. And how many is that?
A little in the mid-900s.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is now, you guys literally just joined the laborers, right?
Correct.
Leona, Chicagoland, Chicago District Council, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
And you were steelworkers.
Correct.
What made you decide to change?
I think we just needed just a new direction.
Yeah.
You know, just something that could just impact our ability to make Walgreens listen to us.
Okay. And coming to the building trades is an interesting move for pharmacists, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a good move, especially in an area where you need to grow this membership, where there is so much more of a need for unions in what some people might consider non-traditional industries. The building trades is a place that is built on organizing, and so growing your membership, being in a building trades union, I think that you'll be well served.
So you guys have a pretty hefty task in front of you,
Yeah.
right? You're in the midst of negotiations.
Yes.
And by the way, your association has been around since when? A long time.
1968 is
Yeah.
when it actually originated.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not brand new.
No.
And so you're in the midst of negotiations. You switch unions. Labor's are going to come take over, and obviously, labor's are part of the MCL. And obviously, my humble opinion, fantastic, aggressive building trades union, and they get it, and they understand, leverage points, and they have lawyers and business agents and organizers and all the bells and whistles. But your contract is unique, and that is this: you guys have what's called an open shop agreement.
Right.
Yes.
And for everybody that's listening out there, and I'm specifically now talking to you Walgreens pharmacists in the Chicagoland area, an open shop agreement means that you don't have to pay dues and you can still reap the benefits of the union, right?
Correct.
Okay. We don't have those in the building trades.
No.
I've never seen one.
It doesn't usually result in strong unions, just like any business that provides a service and paying for it is optional, that business is not going to be successful. And for a union, that's important because a successful union is needed to represent the members, the workforce properly as it deserves to be.
And it needs money to do so.
That's correct.
No free riders.
That's right. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
And you guys have 100 and change dues paying members and 700 and change non-dues paying members.
That's correct.
Yeah. So you guys literally now have, you're staring at two really, I think, very difficult things. One is you're going up against Walgreens, which is, not a mom and pop shop.
Yeah. Not
By far. No.
Yeah. They probably have a lot of money, and they probably have very high-priced lawyers. And number two, you have to go out and organize the rest of your coworkers, right?
Right.
You have to convince them that it makes sense to join the union.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's going to take a really heavy lift. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the reasons that you guys join the laborers is that they're up for that fight.
Right.
Right?
Oh,
Yes.
definitely, and that's we're excited about that because they're excited. They kind of gave us a breath of new hope,
Good.
so to speak, and
Good.
they're gung ho about trying. Another challenge we have is the fact that we're all at these separate locations.
Oh, yeah.
We're like little deserted islands all
Sure.
to ourselves. So it's hard to get the message across and to bring us all together again under that one umbrella. And they seem up for the challenge. So
That's awesome. And I mean, it takes manpower, right?
Right.
It takes time, money, effort. So what are the dues? 1%?
Yes.
That's it.
That's it.
That's all it is. Which is
That's a lot lower than most unions. A lot of unions in the building trades are, say, 2%, 3%, which, as we say on the show all the time, is the best investment you can possibly make. But 1%, and to have 700 folks out there who, certainly would be encouraged to see progress through a union, but don't want to put 1% toward it. I'll be the first to say it. Folks listening who are Walgreens pharmacists who aren't paying dues, you want to see change, you want to see progress. If you think you're going to do better going it alone, let me be the one to tell you that you're not. So be a part of the union, be a part of this. You'll achieve more together, and to be a part of that, you've got to really be a part of it. Contribute, speak up, talk about the things that are bothering you, and drive change. Identify things that you'd like to see better at work. More time, more breaks, more staffing. You see it in hospitals and nurses unions all over the country, and it's working. So do it, but don't just sit on the sidelines. Be an active part of it, because a union that's not active, where members aren't actively fighting for this stuff, isn't going to be all it can be.
Yeah, I was just going to add on. So Rob and myself, okay, there's 5 of us on the board, and we just can't. The 5 of us can't win this battle,
right?
And that's the problem we have. And just to reiterate, we are full-time pharmacists as well. So this isn't my full-time job wanting to run this, and it's trying, right? You're trying to fit in your life, you're trying to fit in
your
work
family,
schedule,
your work, and then now the union, and on top of it, oh, by the way, now I just got to organize 700 more people, in 45 different shops all over the place.
Right. 45, it's more like 300.
Is it that many?
Yeah.
That's a heavy lift, right? So you connect with a building trades union like the laborers, obviously, and first thing, look, I'm looking right here, leunichicago.org/NPHA, right?
Yes.
That's the website, and boom, there's your website. And one of the things that they offered right out of the gate is if you're a dues paying member, you get the benefits of the Midwest Coalition of Labor. So, hey, pharmacists,
that's worth
take
the
a look at
1%
it.
alone.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's kind of low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
On top of that, you know what they did? The laborers did. They're buying their dues-paying members an extra $100,000 worth of life insurance.
Yeah.
On top of what they already get through Walgreens, with the ability then to buy another, $700,000 with no medical questions, et cetera. I mean, right out of the gate, here's a union that's smart. They come in and they offer value. Besides all the other stuff that the MCL has, legal services and et cetera, et cetera. And you can find all that right on that website. If you click additional benefits for dues paying members, you're going to see all of it. Yeah. So, hey, pharmacists, sign up, join. Can they join on the website, by the way?
Yes, there should be application on there as
perfect,
well. Yeah.
Perfect. So, what does this look like for the next year or so? I mean, are you going to spend time focusing on the contract? Are you going to spend time working with laborers to increase membership? Are you going to be doing both? Like, what does it look like for you?
Probably going to be both.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just a crawl, walk, run process.
Right.
And, getting this density back to where it used to be is going to be the biggest generator of our ability to do something.
And I think that's obviously, like, Ed said, the strength in numbers.
Yeah.
Right? And exactly what Ed just said, about, the nurses that are complaining basically about the same things that you guys are complaining about. Bad working conditions, understaffing, right? Longer hours, not being able to take care of their patients well enough. And you saw Kaiser Permanente, they have 75,000?
3 days.
Walked out on strike for 3 days and boom, they have a contract.
Yeah.
Right.
And how did they do that? They have 75,000
members, active members,
dues paying, card carrying union members walking out on strike and saying, "This we're not asking, we're not begging, we're demanding."
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Right? And when you're at 100 people and you're negotiating for 800 people, the old adage that the employers say is, well, it seems like more than 90% of your people are fine with what they're getting.
Right.
Why should we give you more? Right? And that's nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently not. With all these articles coming out, people walking off the job, it's not.
And strikes work.
Yeah.
Strikes work. Looking forward, we talked about that at the top of the show, and we'll get into that more. But strikes work. Period.
Yeah, you just got to get your density up, right?
Yeah.
Before you can effectively strike.
Right.
Not that I'm saying that there's going to be a Walgreens strike or
No,
a
just
pharmacy strike.
labor action, solidarity, all of
Yeah.
that stuff works. And if Walgreens sees that you have 1,000 people in your union and 300 are paying dues, Walgreens knows that.
Of course.
So it's just we'll take you kind of seriously. So if you're one of those 700 not paying dues, you're on the boat. You have an oar in your hand. Just row in the same direction.
Yeah.
Come
I like
on,
that.
you're going somewhere. Get there faster.
You love like Vikings and gladiators, don't you?
Who doesn't? Gladiators especially.
I know.
You ever watch Gladiator movies, Danny?
Right. But I mean,
And there are walkouts happening right now, right? Like all over the country.
there are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it talks about that in
Yeah.
that article, Phil.
Yeah.
It's they're all over the place, right? People getting burned
Right.
out, and they're just I can't
So
take it anymore.
Now it's time to organize. Now
Right.
it's
It is.
to build your
I think
muscle.
so, and then you have that. Now you have the backing of the building trades, right? And if the laborers said to the carpenters and the operators, like, "Hey, brothers, we need you to show up on such and such a day or such and
course.
such a thing," well, we're going to be there, right? So you have the backing, not just the laborers, but now all of Chicago building trades, and quite frankly, probably the rest of the unions here in Chicago as well.
And to the public who's listening, you have a stake in this too, because do you want the pharmacist that you're going to pick up your medication from your kids to have a line of people 30 long where they have to see everybody and they have to sort of inherently be in a rush? Or do you want these folks to be staffed, to be properly staffed, to be able to spend a minute with you and ask you, about how you're feeling, about how your kids are feeling? You want someone to look you in the eyes, treat you like a person rather than just boom, 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 boom. So if you're out there and you use pharmacies, which, as we say, if you're over 20 years old and you're alive, you probably are on some kind of medication these days. Support these folks because they're the people that are trying to keep you healthy.
And I think what you guys are doing, I think, will obviously have a ripple effect, right? Even though you've been around since the '60s, it sounds like it's kind of like whatever, But now, like that, you have some attention getting, pointed your direction from the media and now from the unions, et cetera. Now's the time, right? So if you're successful, then the CVS pharmacists can be successful, and Rite Aid, and et cetera, right?
Well, and we're in a fortunate situation. A lot of these, pharmacists around the country that are walking out, they don't have representation. They're starting from ground zero.
Right.
But we have a union in place.
That's right. Yeah, you're a
situation.
bunch of steps ahead.
Yeah.
So now all you got to do is get the rest of those folks to join the union.
That's right.
Get a good contract, get rid of that open shop, and the world's your oyster, in my
Yep.
humble opinion.
And and to say, you really have nothing to lose right now. I mean, if you think it's bad, and we're in the state we are, if we aren't in existence anymore,
Yeah.
I just
You
shudder.
yeah,
It'll get worse.
there's no question about it. I've seen
It'll
places
be all
that
technicians.
have absolutely interns. It'll be robots. It'll be telehealth. It'll be
The
Amazon's
cheapest option
pill
possible.
It's all about the
pack.
shareholders. Yeah.
It's all about the almighty dollar,
Right.
and you guys deserve your share of it. And listen, we got a break here. We've been talking to Joe Pignataro, Rob Koblesky from the National Pharmacists Association, who have just recently joined the laborers. They are in a fight. Pay attention to this fight. If you're a Walgreens user, and go get a prescription, give them a thumbs up. Tell them to join the union, And you guys, are doing God's work, and I know labor thanks you, and I'm sure your patients thank you as well. And
It's time for Walgreens to thank you.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, go give
and,
them
by thank you, I mean pay you.
Yes.
So listen, we got to take a break. We will be right back with we're going to wrap up the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. I'm Ken with Ed. Phil, that was really interesting with those guys, huh?
I really feel for them, and I wish them well on their organizing campaign. And,
Absolutely.
they absolutely deserve to, and just got to get everyone else on board. Let's do it.
And it's
Yeah.
got to be news to a lot of folks. I think there are probably people who think pharmacists are like surgeons, like doctors. They're extremely well compensated. They have no problems at work. And to hear that the people who dispense medications like that are dealing with the same kind of hassles that so many other people are dealing with, I think that should be surprising and should be really concerning to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think, look, if like you said, if you take medicine, you want it's just like if you're flying, you want your pilot to be well rested,
Exactly.
well compensated, very happy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Not working 5 12s in a row and, not getting any sleep. And I mean,
Yeah.
right?
And when you think of the pharmaceutical industry and the trillions of dollars that are flowing through that.
Trillions, right?
Trillions. I mean, our
Trillions.
country is basically beholden to the pharmaceutical industry.
Right.
And that the people dispensing it are being shortchanged and overworked. Like, that's crazy.
That's a good
Yeah.
point, Phil.
Yeah.
It's not like, move Walgreens out of the way for a second.
Right.
It's not like the actual pharmaceutical companies couldn't just take 1% of that money and fund it all,
Literally.
right? Just like if Amazon paid their taxes.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, Ed, you had an interesting thing that there was a New York Times op-ed.
Right.
What was it?
So earlier this week, the New York Times had an opinion essay from somebody with the Tax Policy Center in Stanford Business School saying, for the good of the country, older Americans should work more and take less. So basically, what they're saying here is you're going to live longer than you would have in, say, 1960 when Social Security, was, people lived a lot less, so Social Security could carry you a little bit further. So if you're thinking about retiring, or if you've already retired, this individual would say you should go back to work, another 10 years, and take less in Social Security for the good of the nation. The good of the nation, I think, if you'll hand me my soapbox really
Sure.
quick.
Yeah.
I'll step up on the
Go
soapbox.
ahead.
And companies don't provide retirement benefits that are adequate for people anymore. So everybody relies on Social Security, which
Right.
was never intended to be a standalone vehicle for retirement.
One leg of the stool.
That's exactly right. So personal savings, 401ks was supposed to be part of that.
Sure.
Social Security was supposed to be part of that.
Pensions.
And pensions were supposed to be a big part of that. So companies don't do pensions anymore. Folks that are out there and hear about, things with the UAW fighting for their pension plan back, there are a lot of people who would say, oh, I don't get a pension. They don't deserve a pension. Well, guess what? Now they're saying, you didn't get a pension, and now we want you to work for another 10 years because we can't afford to carry you through retirement. So, does that sound good? I don't think they're going to be doing this by volunteers because they're not going to get a lot of hands raising.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough sell.
But if you're close to retirement, if you've already retired, and you're hearing people fighting for better retirement, for better wages, for a better way of life, and you don't feel a whole lot of sympathy toward them, well, they're going to be coming for you next. So don't ever forget that, because if people need to save to be able to retire and can't rely on the government, and there are a lot of listeners out there, I'm sure, that don't trust the long-term security of Social Security, or worry that it won't be there to take care of them, save. Get your employer to help you save. Get your employer to take an interest in your retirement.
That's right. Demand a fair wage. Demand a pension. Demand that Social Security be fully funded. You're absolutely right. And look, I didn't know that, and that article came out of that op-ed. But on one hand, right, on the later spectrum of life, hey, work longer. Like, just work till you die. And on the other end of it, it's like, hey, 12-year-old, you want a job?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, what the heck?
Yeah. Well, what's
the
another
lowest hanging
10
fruit.
years? You
Yeah.
just have to work another 10 years. You're not that tired.
Yeah. And you know what? You don't get your you're not sitting in the Clarence Thomas seat, if you will, where you have a $250,000 RV and don't
Bought
have
and
to
paid
pay
for you.
you don't have to pay it back.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Right?
I think we could say he's our consensus least favorite Supreme Court justice here at the Workers' Mic.
Supreme Court injustice.
Heyo. So, yeah, he got a $250,000 camper, and he loves to portray himself as the American everyman, saying,
Right.
Ginny and I will, we're driving this to storm the Capitol, and we camp it out in Walmart parking lots because we're not fancy people. Well, guess what? They're $250,000 rolling home.
They say it's like the ones that like rock stars travel
Yeah,
around in,
so-
right?
Was it from Crow?
She's a rock star to other Capitol protesters.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they got this paid for, and it was considered a loan, and then the loan was just forgiven. So they got a free camper.
Find out
Don't
that
you-
works. Yeah.
don't you have to pay
Yeah.
taxes
Yeah,
on that?
there's
And
this-
I have to disclose that. And
There's this little group called the IRS who's really good at getting their piece of anything you earn or anything you get for free. So
they certainly get it from the middle class, right?
Yeah.
We pay every penny and then some.
Yeah.
But sometimes somehow these folks just get away with it.
yeah, so
So you're dropping the dime on Clarence Thomas.
Clarence Thomas is a tax dodger. He's a
is,
Supreme Court justice who won't pay taxes.
So is his own colleague. Didn't Amy Coney Barrett recently say, like, yeah, it's time for us to have a code of ethics, and which would hopefully include no free RVs
Yeah.
for justices. Yeah.
They should, of course they should.
Not taking cash from people that are
I don't
arguing
understand
before
though.
the
If you're a
Supreme Court.
lawyer, aren't you already subject to the code of ethics?
Yeah.
That's what I thought, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Supreme Court, I guess, is above the law, if you will.
Clarence Thomas, he said that he talked to a guy earlier in his career, and the guy told him that it was fine. So the guy breaking the rules said that my buddy told me it was cool.
That's the excuse.
Yeah.
And I don't know anywhere that works in the world.
that
so
holds up.
we can't let it work at the Supreme Court. So hashtag resign Clarence Thomas.
I'm going to change his license plate to free.
Yeah.
This was free.
Yeah.
I love free stuff.
Yeah, my other car didn't cost me anything.
Yeah, free
Good one.
homes,
Yeah.
free RVs.
All right,
If you're looking for my wife, she's outside the Capitol.
She's storming the Capitol. All right, we got to go. Everybody have a very safe Halloween out there. Watch your kids' candy,
Yeah.
please.
Don't eat
Go
candy with
through
razor blades.
Yeah, that's for. Don't eat the apples. And we will
And
see
come
you.
watch your performance,
What do you mean?
your guitar.
Oh,
soloing.
absolutely. If you're in the neighborhood, you'll hear the worst guitar playing you've heard in a very, very long time.
Since last Halloween.
Yeah, since last year. All right, listen, we will be back next week on the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN.